It was Ashley.
We have to get to him.
Alex yelled, turning to me. With every fiber of my body, I resisted stepping through that gateway. I knew if we did, terrible things would happen. If I stepped through, I knew sooner or later I would meet the jackal. But I had to know. About Ashley, the carvings, everything. So with a deep breath and trying to hold my hand still, I made my choice. Together, we stepped through the gateway to Ashley and the dark beast beyond. The first change I noticed was the ground. The fine white dust was coated in the entire cave past the gateway. I didn't know the origin, and it didn't appear to be any sort of mineral or rock I had encountered before. It was strange, but then given the nature of the rest of the cave, it made it almost normal. The darkness grew progressively thicker as we advanced. I noticed that we were running low on flares, only about 20 each. It was a problem, but not one I was particularly concerned about considering the current predicament we were in. Ashley hadn't made any more noise besides his original scream. It concerned me far more than if he had kept screaming. There could be a logical reason for him not screaming. Perhaps he ran deeper into the cave and maybe he was conserving his voice, I thought, but I was throwing up improbable answers to cover my fear. My true thought rose unbidden to my mind. What if whatever made him scream stopped him from doing it again? I felt sick again. Ahead of us, not even 100 meters from the gateway, was a crossroads, the first such divide in the otherwise linear path. I'd appreciated the lack of divergent paths so far because it meant that we didn't have to divide our group, stunted as it was. Appearing now as it had seemed like extraordinarily bad luck on our part. Seemed like. That's the key point. Nothing in this godforsaken cave had been left to chance. Lost in my grim thoughts as I was, I didn't notice the object ahead of us until Alex exclaimed and then ran towards it. Startled, I looked up. Alex blocked my direct view of it, and all I knew of it apparently was that it was quite large. I ran towards it. It was Ashley's pack, ripped and torn. Blood covered it in the immediate area in irregular patterns. Beside me, Alex stepped back tentatively, lost for words. Something attacked him, tore the pack right from his back with such force. Must have injured him as well, judging by the blood, I said quietly, surprised at how clinical and calm my assessment of the scene had been.
That's it. I'm out. I'm going.
Alex said, turning away quickly, but not before I saw the fear in his eyes. He was terrified. Samantha nodded in agreement, turning to leave as well. I didn't try to stop either of them. They would be back.
You won't get a foot past the gateway,
I called to them, certain that it would prevent them from leaving. I turned back to Ashley's pack slowly and began searching it through quickly, taking only a few items. I hesitated when my hand touched the flare gun, but I took it anyways and kept it in my hand. I knew from experience against various types of wildlife that it does make an effective weapon. If I met anything that wasn't Ashley, I would fire without mercy. I stood and chose the right-hand passageway, and I didn't feel scared anymore. In fact, I didn't feel anything. Adrenaline was coursing through my system, leaving no room for fear or any other emotions otherwise. It grew progressively darker. The darkness was thick and cloying. As a lifetime asthma sufferer, it reminded me of when I needed my inhaler. I knew the flares would soon be useless, regardless of whether they should have been effective. Beside me, I noticed something scrawled in the dust. Apparently of human origin, that at least was no mystery. I glanced at each in turn almost mechanically, knowing that it couldn't be any worse. It appeared that we weren't the first people to stumble into this place. I have seen it, and it blinded me. This is its domain, and it's taller than any human. Suddenly, I stopped. The last was different from the others, in lowercase and freshly written. It cut me. I'm running. Ashley's riding. And then, as if by magic, I heard two things. A scream and a roar. Ashley and the jackal. They were close. I ran towards the sound. I felt rather than sensed that I had walked into a massive cavern. To prove my theory, I slapped the air to my right. As if I was still in the claustrophobic cave, my hand would surely be shattered on the wall. As I expected, I hit nothing but the stagnant air of the cave. The flares provided nothing more than a dim glow at this point. I looked at it in horror as the glow slowly faded. The fading light represented my last defense against the darkness of the cave. Or cave, as I felt it should be called, and its sole inhabitant. The inhabitant, apparently called the jackal. The light faded completely, and I was alone. In the moment I heard it. The voice.
This is my cave.
It was flat and terrible and loud. It reverberated around me, seemingly without a source or direction. I spun in the darkness, the cloying, constricting darkness, and felt my heart in my throat. I knew that if I walked backwards, I would no longer find the passageway that led me to the lair of the jackal. Once you entered this center cavern, there was no leaving it. Just like the carvings promised, I thought. I screamed and ran. It was a futile gesture. The voice boomed around me, terrifying in its alienness and its flat, expressionless quality. The jackal was not human, nor was it even some revenant or ghost of a forgotten culture. It was something that had no place in this universe and something that I wished to never see. My heart thundered in my chest and my eyes vibrated. I could no longer even control my own body. I'm a prisoner in my own body.
The other one screamed before I took her.
The jackal interrupted my thoughts.
Fuck you!
I screamed hysterically into the darkness around me. It was a petty rebellion. I doubted the jackal even knew what it meant, but I felt better for it all the same. Around me, the darkness coalesced. It's alive, I thought. I tried to stifle a scream as an image popped in my head. Thousands of millions of bugs crawling all over me in the darkness, biting and scratching and running, and was banished moments later by the jackal's next oration.
You will remain here forever.
I know that voice, I thought vaguely. After the voice came the footsteps. I sensed I can both feel the tremors and hear the steps. Hundreds of them around me, pounding the floor in rapid and terrifying rhythm. Rolling thunder, I thought crazily and laughed. What little sanity I had possessed was rapidly being eroded away by the darkness, millions of bugs, rolling thunder. The jackal and its influence over the cave and consequently those inside it. I doubted if Ashley was still alive, that Samantha and Alex had escaped. I didn't even think that Karen, Vincent, and Jason had escaped alive. Even as I considered this, the jackal howled again, the flat voice echoing throughout my dark prison.
They all died, as will you.
The jackal roared, its expressionless tone creating a queer, wavering effect that hurt my ears. My throat burned from the lack of moisture, a headache pounded in my head, and my ears throbbed strangely in time with the footsteps. Just rolling thunder, I thought, and I laughed crazily. Then I considered what the jackal had said. It can read my thoughts. It was not such a fantastical idea. The jackal had only ever spoken after I had a thought. A coincidence? I think not. Pardon the pun. I considered the mental connection and an idea began to form. I stopped running and emptied my thoughts, banishing the sensory manipulations the jackal was using on me. The footsteps around me intensified, but I heard none of it as I shut down my senses and opened my mind. Then, exposed without the cloak of my previous panic thoughts, I felt it. The jackal's mind. It was colossal, alien, like a structure too gargantuan for the human mind to even comprehend. It would dwarf me, swallow my mind whole, and leave me a gibbering wreck if I considered it for too long. It wasn't natural, let alone human. Thoughts and ideas seemed to be constructed in a fashion that was incomprehensible to the human mind. In a word, The jackal's presence was dark. As I felt its presence wash over me, I steeled myself and sprung the trap. Instantly, before the beast could retreat, I thought of light. A blinding supernova, more light than any human had ever witnessed, a bright inferno of light. I let the mental image expand in my mind and over into the jackal's colossal presence. I guessed that such a creature had never even seen light, or if it had spent so long underground, bathed in a darkness that it controlled. Such light, even as an image, would do tremendous harm to it, considering that the jackal's mental abilities far outclassed my own. And I was right. The instant the supernova image touched the jackal's presence, a tremendous shriek filled the chamber, immediately overtaking all the phantom footsteps that had so tormented me. I grinned savagely despite the pain the squeal caused my ears. That, at least, sounded vaguely human. It felt empowering to know that I had hurt the jackal, probably badly. I heard rushing noises around me and opened my eyes. Impossibly, the darkness was retracting around me. I spun wildly. In the grip of the receding darkness, as I moved, I glanced around me. I was in a huge chamber, one that extended far into the distance. I saw columns and pillars and carvings and realized that this was the jackal's feeding ground that had been the subject of the ominous cave paintings. I had no time to consider that, however, as the final darkness receded. The cave that was lit by light had no source. My mental light, I thought, exposed its only occupant, and that occupant's slave. And just like that, I saw them. Ashley and the jackal. I could never truly describe the beast that was before me. It wasn't because I didn't know the right way to articulate it. I knew exactly what to call it. I simply just could not comprehend it. It was as if I was viewing it from the extremities of my peripheral vision. It was blurry and soft and weak. Weak because it had no hard angles or edges. No matter how hard I looked, how much I stared, the jackal remained hidden to me. A formless shape hidden under a veil of unreality. The cave paintings, warnings, carvings, whatever adjective I can attach to them, were truer than I had thought, even after the jackal had turned out to be real. They depicted a blurry, formless jackal, and so it was. Yes, I knew exactly what it was, indistinct. Ashley, however, was not. I looked at him in horror. His body was covered in blood, flesh, and other less identifiable materials. I could count at least 8 visible wounds and more red lines that I couldn't distinguish from the gore saturating his form. A gaping wound cut across his stomach, revealing intestines pink and rubbery. Blood flowed from multiple slashes on his arms and legs. He was probably dead, certainly unconscious, but that wasn't the worst of it. His entire right ear had been torn clean off his head. Bile rose in my throat as I stared at his prostrate form, horrified. The jackal had done this to him. As I thought of the beast before me, I realized that the cavern around me was silent. The jackal's screech, so loud to begin with, had been cut off instantly some moment previous, unlike the gradual decline that was characteristic in humans. Then again, it isn't and has never resembled anything close to a human. I would wager every possession I own it has no similarity to any creature of this dimension. I can't even begin to consider its true form. Even as I watched, it got infinitely worse. Until Ashley began to move through the air, I hadn't even noticed that he'd been airborne, so enthralled that I had been by his ravaged body. Slowly, never wavering in speed, Ashley began to recede towards the blurry shape that represented the jackal. I thought back to the carvings in horror. With every sacrifice, it gains form and a greater foothold in this dimension. I wanted to rush forward and tear Ashley from the jackal's thrall, but to come within reach of the creature would mean an unspeakable end, one that I'd already faced had I not wounded it with a psychic supernova. Suddenly, Ashley stopped moving, and I realized with a shock how the jackal had previously communicated. Through Ashley. Now I know why I slightly recognized the voice, even distorted as it had been. Ashley's mouth opened, and from it roared the jackal.
You will suffer for using the glow against me. Suffer as he did,
said that grotesque Ashley jackal hybrid. Evidently, it only knew the light had hurt it so much as the glow. It didn't matter. The important thing was that it had been hurt and badly. I probed my mind. No trace of the jackal's presence remained, though. Apparently, that part of it, physically manifested in the darkness, had either been destroyed or banished by my mental counterattack.
Even if I meet my death here, beast, I will do my utmost to bring you with me,
I responded bravely. The saturating fear and accompanying thoughts which had so crippled me, both mentally and physically, was gone now. I could see the jackal, regardless of how well I could comprehend it. Much of the terror that I had felt at the hands of it was gone, just like the virulent darkness. Even the voice was less intimidating now that it had a definitive source. It spoke again.
I have consumed many. This one is the last. I will be free from my prison.
The jackal bellowed, drawing Ashley towards him.
No,
I whispered. I sprinted towards them. No matter the cost, even if it were my life or my sanity, I could not allow the jackal to consume Ashley and escape whatever prison it was incarcerated in. Such a beast would wreak unimaginable destruction on the surface. I pulled out a red piece of equipment, the last thing I'd taken from Ashley's pack, the flare gun. As the jackal and Ashley came together, I drew and fired, and the world exploded.